Hey y'all, it's Beth and Kaiser, and today I'm gonna be wrapping up the month of April. April was such a good month, quantity wise, because I read 17 books in the month of April. 17 books. That's such a good number. It's such a big number for me. Go me. Go me. I think January I read like 8. February I read 6. I don't know. So like 17? Say less. Now in May, it's the 6th and I've only read 1 book. So I don't know how, granted it was a good book. I don't know how May's gonna look. We really need to get on it. Quantity wise, no. Quality wise, Beth, get it together. In the month of April, wasn't that great. I think I only had 1 5-star. I know, and I want more 5 stars because the color for my book blanket for the 5-star book is pink. I like pink, so I want a lot of pink rose, babe. But sadly, in the month of April, I believe we only had 1. While we're talking about the book blanket, let me show you my progress. So this is where we're at, the bottom being January and then all the way to April. And I'm telling you what, I am loving it. I am so glad I decided to do this. This is the granny stripe blanket is the type of stitch that I'm doing, which is the type of stitch that I love because growing up, my mom had a bunch of these like Afghans and they were done like this. And so it just takes me back to that time. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with what a book blanket is, some people do genres for every book they read. They have a color like coordinated to a certain genre and it just reflects what their year looked like reading wise. Mine is different. I am doing star ratings. So for every 5-star is a pink row, 4 stars a blue row, 3 stars an orange row, 2 star is a green row. It's very, very rare for me to give out 1 stars. Typically, if I feel like a book is going to be a 1 star, I'm going to DNF it before I even get to the end because like why would I waste my time? You know what I'm saying? I do have a 1-star color picked out, but I highly doubt I get to that color, which is fine. But anyway, that's how it's looking. She's looking fly. She's looking great. I'm obsessed. So let's go ahead and dive into the 17 books that I read in the month of April. I'm gonna be really real with you. I was gonna pull out, you know, my little spiral notebook. I was gonna go on Goodreads and take notes so I can remember to mention things and this, that, and the other so I can make this a very educated type wrap up, you know what I'm saying? But that's not what happened. I didn't do that. So we're just gonna pretend that you're coming over my house, you're visiting me, you cracked open a Diet Coke, I cracked open a Diet Coke, and we're sitting in my book room chilling, and I'm about to just tell you about some books that I read. Okay, let's dive into a book. Number 1, I go in chronological order, so I start with the first book that I read in the month and we finish with the last book. Okay, so up first, I read Rebecca Yaros's book called Full Measures. I seen someone talk about this on Instagram and their Instagram stories. They read it and they loved it, and I was like, you know what? I need a nighttime read because I read at nighttime on my Kindle. So most of the time, my nighttime reads are either Netflix. Wow. No, they're not, Beth. They're NetGalley ARCs or they're Kindle Unlimited books. This was a Kindle Unlimited book. I digress. So this is a new adult romance book. And in the beginning of this book, we have a girl named Ember. I think she's like a freshman in college, or she just finished her freshman year and going into her sophomore year, something along those lines. She's pretty new to the college world, okay? And she has a dad who is a doctor in the military, and he is overseas doing his duties when he gets killed. So she has to go back home from college and kind of help her family cope with this, as well as try to figure out how to cope herself. So she has a mom who is really, like, her mom and her dad were like soulmates. Her mom was truly, truly, truly in love with her dad, to the point where when her dad passed away, her mom just, it was a very heartbreaking situation to read. I'm just gonna tell you that. I cried probably through 60% of this book because of how heartbreaking it was. So she has her mom who's not coping. She has a younger sister who's like a teenager, freshman, sophomore, something like that in high school, and the way that she's learning how to cope, she's kind of wilding out a little bit. And then she has a younger brother. Anyway, so she's back home and she's like helping them out, trying to figure out how to run this household because her mother's in her room. It's just a lot. Well, anyway, she goes to the store to get a cake. She can't pay for it because she forgot her wallet at home. She's crying because she just found out the news that her dad died. This guy comes behind her and pays for her cake. Lo and behold, it's Josh, who she went to school with. And in school, Josh was like the bad guy that all the girls had the crush on, the bad fuck boy, if you will. Needless to say, same day, or maybe the next day, I can't really remember, Ember also finds out that her boyfriend of many years has been cheating on her with her best friend. There's Josh there, and Josh is like her brother's hockey coach as well, and he's hot, and this, that, and the other, and one thing leads to another. You already know what it is. It's a new adult book, so you know there's some smut in it. I will tell you, Beth, from 10 years ago when I was in my new adult era, okay, when I was reading the Jennifer L. Armentrout books and the Colleen Hoover era, I would have loved this book then. This would have been like my kryptonite. However, this book was good in the sense that it truly broke my heart. The emotions were there, but it was for the passing of the father, okay, and like how the family is coping and things like that. The romance, on the other hand, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it wasn't anything spectacular. There are a few like cute little moments, but nothing super memorable, you know what I mean? It was just like, okay, this is cute. I think I would have related more had I'm in my 30s, like let's be real. Can I relate to a 19-year-old? Probably not. Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars, so. I mean, it's a decent book. I'm not gonna like, whatever. But definitely 10 years ago, Beth would have ate this shit up. So if new adult is your thing, you might eat this shit up. Okay, so the next few books were actually in my bookshelf ultimatum #2 video. If you haven't seen that, I'll link it down below. But if any of these interest you, I did vlog about my experience reading those. And the first one that I read was The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. I own all of their books together. I've never read any of them though. This was the first one. I will tell you this, had I read this earlier in my thriller journey, I would have ate this shit up. This would have been a 5-star thriller for me. I've read many, and a few of them are very similar to this book. I think that's why I couldn't really give it like a super high rating. I did give it a 3-star, 3.5 stars, something like that. I can't really tell you the synopsis of it. You don't really go into it knowing much at all because it's part of like the whole twist. This is what the synopsis says. When you read this book, you will make many assumptions. You will assume you are reading about a jealous ex-wife. You will assume she is obsessed with her replacement, a beautiful younger woman who is about to marry the man they both love. You will assume you know the anatomy of this tangled love triangle. Assume nothing. That's literally the synopsis. Even on the actual physical book, that's all the synopsis you get. So guess what? That's all the synopsis I'm gonna give you. Anyway, so I gave the book 3 stars. I do think if you are pretty new to the thriller world and haven't read all of the twists, you would enjoy this one. But I feel like I've read a book pretty similar, but they do it better. And so it's so wild to say that I can't give it a full 5 stars because I read better. With like whatever. Anyway, that's The Wife Between Us. And that was a very shitty job, but I can't really talk about the book because, you know, I can't. Okay, so the next book that I read is called Lie to Me by Claire McIntosh. This book is heavy on the mystery, okay? There is some thriller bits at the end. It does really pick up at the end, but I'm gonna tell you right here, right now, the first, I don't know, 60-70% of this book, it goes pretty slow, okay? We have a husband and a wife. The husband unalives himself by jumping off a cliff. And then I want to say it was like a few months later, the wife does the same thing and dives off the cliff. And they leave an adult daughter behind. This adult daughter doesn't think that these were suicides. She thinks there's something else behind it. In the synopsis, I want to say that it says, some people think it's suicide, some people think it's murder. It's neither one. The very first chapter, you're in the perspective of the mom who supposedly jumped off the cliff. And so you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on because the entire rest of the world thinks that she has jumped off that cliff. Also in this book, we do get the perspective of a retired detective as well that is still kind of like working on the case. So if you do love like a good sleuthin' type read, this is definitely one of those, but keep in mind again, it does go really slow, but trust me, this book was going to be a 2-star for me, okay? It was going to be a 2-star for me. I am so glad that I pushed through because I wound up giving it a 4 stars at the end because the ending was just, the ending was good. The ending was good. Imagine I'm in English class and these are like my written book reviews for the teacher. I would be repeating a grade. So up next, I read The Bone Collector by Jeffrey Deaver, and this is a crime book, a detective book, a police procedural, a forensic crime thriller, all of the above, and it definitely like checks off a bunch of things that I love when it comes to thrillers, because if I'm gonna read a thriller, I prefer a crime thriller, I prefer a detective character, I prefer a daddy book, okay? And this is that. The thing is I read the first, like, I don't know, half of this maybe via audio, and I definitely think that was a downfall for me because the audio is so dated. And I understand this book was written in the 90s, this book itself is dated, but the audiobook was just not it, babe. It wasn't it. There's like no personality, very monotone, very robotic, not it. Yeah. So this book is about a man named Lincoln. Lincoln was a forensic criminalist and he was like the best at his job. So he would like go to the crime scenes. And have you ever seen Sherlock Holmes? The TV show one with Benedict, what is his name? Why am I thinking Cucumber? That's not his name. Benedict Cabbage Patch, whatever, him. It's a good show. It's a really good show. And you know how he can look at a crime scene and like put the pieces together in his head? That's exactly how Lincoln can do it. He's that good, okay? So his ex-partner comes to, because Lincoln can no longer like be a cop. He's a quadriplegic, I should say. He got into a really bad accident and now he can only move one finger and that's it. And he's bedridden. He can't even get up and like get in a wheelchair. So he's no longer a police officer and he's really, really, really depressed to the point where he's been trying to get multiple people to help him unalive himself because he can't move, so he can't do it. So he needs somebody to help him. That's how bad he is, or down and out he is. Anyway, so his old partner comes to him and is like, we have this case, we need help now, stat, because like this serial killer has somebody and he's leaving us these clues and this puzzle and we need help. And so Lincoln's like, okay, sure, I'll help you. He's on the case, but he uses a girl named Amelia. She was a patrol officer. Okay, so first off, she gets to the crime scene first as just your normal patrol officer. And so that's how Lincoln's like, let me use her as my eyes and she can like report back on what she sees at the crime scene. And remember, this is written in 1997. There's no FaceTime, okay? There's no like true cell phones. They have to like come up with this technology situation for him to be able, because he can't just be like, hey Siri, call Amelia. You know what I'm saying? He can just FaceTime and see the crime scene.
I don't see Amelia in your contacts.
Oh girl. Calm down. Anyway, so him being back on the case like resparks his joy for life, I guess you would say. Eventually, I will say this, eventually he does get in a wheelchair and he is able to actually go to the crime scenes and actually be there. That was really nice to read about because I was like, how is this gonna work if he is fully bedridden? There's 20 books in this series that's about him. We cannot be in his apartment the entire time. Like, how is this gonna fully work? Well, anyway, that's how it works. Long story short, I did give this 4 stars. I do plan on continuing the series, and I do recommend if you are into like police procedural, forensic thriller type books. And that was a lot for one book. And I guess I could have just read you the Goodreads synopsis and shortened it up a little bit. I digress. So the next book and the last book that was featured in my bookshelf ultimatum video was The Christmas Fix by Lucy Score. This is a Christmas romance type book. It is the second in a series. However, you can read this one without reading the first. Let me sum it up just like kind of briefly because it's like a romance book. It's nothing serious. Sir! Okay. So in this book, our main girl is the host of like this HGTV type show where they go around and they fix people's houses. Well, they want to do a Christmas special and she like pitches this thing to the people. Like, she knows this town called Mary that has been recently hit by a hurricane, and they can really use their help, you know, because this town Mary is very much a Christmas tourist town. They make all of their money essentially during the month of December because their town is themed off Christmas, and they can't do that this year because it had been destroyed by the hurricane. And the city manager of the town of Mary doesn't want their help because, one, he doesn't want them to use the townspeople's trauma for ratings, and then two, he just doesn't like the main girl because she has been to their town previously and started a bar fight and blah 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 blah. Long story short, it's a romance book. They do wind up going to the town of Mary to kind of like fix her on up. And I will tell you this, the first little bit of this book, I was not feeling it at all. And then it got kind of good, kind of cheesy, very much like Hallmarky type. I did keep it, I did not unhaul it, but as I'm sitting here thinking about it and talking about it to you, I'm probably gonna unhaul it. I don't know. I gave it 3.5 stars. There's my thoughts on that one. It's not the best Christmas book that I've read, but I feel like when it comes to Christmas romances, have I ever even given one 5 stars? Like, let's be real. They mostly are always 3 stars, if not worse than that. I think the only one that I really gave above a 3 star was In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. Anyway, the next book that I read was Horrid by Katrina Katrina Leno, Horrid. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was like one day sitting in here and I was like, I need a book to read. Let me just pick a book that I think would be easy to get through pretty quickly, and I'll probably wind up unhauling it anyways, because I am trying to get my TBR down and kind of make my size of books small, because when we do move, I'm definitely gonna have a lot less space, so essentially I do need to cut, whatever. I digress. Okay, so I picked up Horrid, and honestly this is a young adult horror book, and I was not expecting much going into this, but boy oh boy, I had a good time. I really did. I really did have a good time. So in this book we have our main character Jane, who when her father passes away, her and her mother can no longer afford to live in California. So her mother's like, you know what, I have this big old house in Maine that was left to me. It's paid off. Let's just pack it on up and move there. So they do. They drive to Maine. They get there. This is when our main character Jane starts hearing all these rumors about said house and this and the other, and she knows that there's secrets going on, and could this house be haunted, and like what's the true meaning behind all of this. And the ending was just superb, my friends. It was in the synopsis it does say kind of like has Stephen King elements to it / meets Agatha Christie situation. I would also say it definitely reminded me a lot of Home Before Dark. It's a little different, but make it like YA. I really liked it. What did I give it? 4 stars, I think? Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. The ending definitely took it up a notch, and I was really surprised because YA horror really doesn't do it for me, for the most part. I mean, sometimes it's a good time, but for the most part, I'm just like, okay, what did I just read? You know? I do definitely recommend if you are looking for a good YA horror book to read. Going along the same idea of trying to just get books on my shelves read, I picked up I Will Find You by Harlan Coben, and I will tell you, I really enjoyed this one as well. The audiobook narrator of this one was so good. The audiobook to this was so good. It is the same narrator that narrates It by Stephen King, which if you've listened to the audiobook of It by Stephen King, you know that the narrator was phenomenal. This was such a good audiobook to listen to if you're looking for a good audiobook to listen to. In this book, we have this father who is serving years in prison for murdering his son. And then one day, 5 years later, after he's been in this prison, there's evidence that his son, his so-called dead son, is actually alive. Not even fucking dead, and he has been serving time in this prison and going through it, babe. Going through it in that prison. For what? For why? So essentially, in this book, it's him trying to like figure out where's his son, who has his son, why did this happen, who set him up, who framed him, this and the other. It was a good time. If you're looking for like a good audiobook thriller to listen to, I recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. Up next, Again, another one. This was like a whole weekend I spent just like binge listening to some audiobooks. So this one was One to Watch by, who wrote this book? Kate Stayman London. And I got this book when it was like first coming out via Book of the Month. So it's been on my shelves for a while. And I hadn't picked it up because I was like, do I really want to pick a book up about The Bachelor, essentially, but make it like The Bachelorette, I guess, because she's a woman and she's plus size. And she has this really popular plus size fashion blog. And she makes blog posts about this Bachelor-esque type show and how they're all skinny women. They're all skinny and beautiful, and which is true. I've never seen The Bachelor. I'm just gonna assume because I've seen photos. And so she like makes this whole post, and the producer of this show contacts her and is like, you know what? Why don't you come on and the show and like be the main person? What is the show called? I didn't forgot. Main Squeeze is the name of the show. And so she goes on. I will tell you, the first, I don't know, like 50% of the book, I was like, let's just, like, why are we making being plus size this girl's entire personality? It's all she thinks about, she does. It's like literally consumes her life 100%. And she has such a negative mind space, you know? It's like with every person she meets, she automatically assumes that they're judging her for her weight. Every single guy on the show, she automatically assumes they're in it for the wrong reasons, that they don't like her, they can't like her because she's plus size. And she doesn't even try to give them a chance. And at first I was like, I'm not gonna enjoy this book. As a plus size girly, I understand feeling like the fattest person in the room. People are gonna be looking at me and like, I get that. Sometimes I get in those headspaces, I get that. But this girl was just, babe, she was far past that. And then something happens and they go, you know, like when you watch these shows and they go back to their hometown and they get to meet their parents and stuff like that. So that happens, and she has like this one-on-one conversation with her parents, and it kind of like flips a switch. And from that point forward, it was so good. She got to like just step back and really notice that some guys do actually like plus size women. Not all men are gonna be in it just for fame, you know? And I don't know, it was just like so good to read, and I loved it. But the creme de la creme of this entire book, okay? The creme de la creme of this entire book was the inserts from podcasts and tweets and social media things. It was like in between every chapter, we have like that going on. The audiobook of this, spectacular. This was such a good audiobook. And those bitch just like took it up a notch, and you got to see like people talking about like watching Main Squeeze on Saturday and who they're going for and this and the other. It was really good. It was really good. This is a good book. It is a good book. If you're going into this and you're like, damn, she's a little negative Nancy, like she's so hard on herself, I don't think I'm gonna enjoy this book, and blah, 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 blah. Keep going, babe. Keep going, because it gets so much better. And I really like this book. I definitely 4.5 stars. So then I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I'm not going to talk too much about this book because you already know what it's about. And if you don't know what it's about Faye. And it's about a girl. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And it's just, if you want some escapism, this is it. You guys, I had a fun time reading this book. If you've read this book and you just want to hear my thoughts on it, I did a spoiler-filled reading vlog. Get your fiddles out, because this is whatever. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I will be reading the next book in the series here in the next week or so. Up next, I read She's Not Sorry by Mary Kubica. This one, let's see, what is my Goodreads? This is one of those ones that's very forgettable. But my Goodreads review says, it was enjoyable enough. One of those thrillers I most likely won't remember a week from now. Huh. Twists were super predictable, not that that really bothers me, but sometimes it would be nice to have, you know, a surprise or something. So our main character is an ICU nurse, and she's also a single mom. She recently has gone through a divorce, has a teenage daughter, dealing with all of that. And one day while she's at work, this lady named Caitlin is brought in, who is in a coma because Caitlin had jumped from a bridge onto some train tracks, and she's very lucky to be alive. So everyone is suspecting that this is a suicide attempt. You know, that's what she was trying to do up on the bridge. But then a witness comes through stating that she was pushed. So then we have police coming in, interviews, going on, and all of that. Meanwhile, also on the side, side, we have this serial attacker going through the town, attacking women at nighttime. That's kind of like talked about here and there throughout the book. And then there's also some other things going on in our main character's life that could potentially mean that her and her daughter could, you know, be in trouble. I don't really want to go too far into the synopsis because it is a thriller. You want to be thrilled. I do think it's like a solid run-of-the-mill popcorn read. I don't know, it's just one of those that you probably won't remember a lot. Like me. Is Mary Kubika a one-hit wonder for me? I feel like she might be, because I've read 3 of her books and one of them was a 5-star. The other 2 I think were both 3 stars. I don't really know, fam. I don't really know, but you can read it if you want to. I gave it 3 stars. Appetite for Innocence by Lucinda Berry. So this one is about this man who is a serial abductor slash he's also a killer. He's just very gross, okay? He goes onto social media and looks up like churches and things like that to find girls who are checking in at church, and then he like follows them and learns their like life and their routines by following their social media. And the reason why I say churches is because he wants very clean, innocent girls, if you will, if you catch my drift. He wants them to be virginal. And so he goes to look for these teenage girly pops and he abducts them. He kidnaps them. That's not funny. He kidnaps them and brings them to his basement, where he then grooms them, uses them for what he needs to use them for, and then when he gets tired of them, he kills them and then goes and finds another girl to replace them. Yeah, so our main girl is stuck in this basement with 2 other girls, and essentially they're trying to get out, or at least she is. And it's pretty dark. I'm not gonna lie to you, it is pretty dark. However, I feel like I've read a couple of other books that's very similar to this one, including like The Cellar by Natasha Preston. I've seen a couple of episodes of Criminal Minds that's very much like this one. I feel like books really have to like do something good for me, thriller wise, because I feel like I don't want to say I don't like thrillers anymore, because I do. I feel like once you've read a lot, it takes a lot to like really shine, and I don't really know where I'm going with that. But I wound up giving this book 3 stars. I don't really remember like why it couldn't be 4 or a 5-star. It wasn't the best Lucinda Berry book that I've read. It wasn't the darkest either. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I do recommend Lucinda Berry if you're looking for an author to read, but that one wasn't my favorite. The next one was The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. This book, I don't know if Sally Hepworth is going to be an author for me. I think this is the second book that I read by her. I just didn't like either one of them. And so this book is about this couple. They move into this house that is kind of like cliffside, and they got it for a really good deal because people like to go to this cliffside area and jump and unalive themselves. Why are all of the books that I'm reading in April about people wanting to unalive themselves? That's a problem. So anyway, they have this cliff, this drop off where people go to try to unalive themselves, and the husband of this couple that lives in this house is very much a people person, okay? And he loves to talk to people and people trust him. He's like one of those kind of people. So he typically goes out there and tries to talk them down, you know, talk them off the ledge, if you will. And he is successful every single time until this most recent time when a woman jumps off the cliff. Lo and behold, the wife finds out that the woman is connected to the man, and she's like second guessing everything. Did he push her on purpose? Why is the one person that he couldn't save connected to him? And then it like goes, you know, background and this and the other, and you find out like why and blah, 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 blah. It was just very boring, honestly. There was nothing super original about this. Very boring, very lackluster, and not like, you know, like when you read them books and you're like, wow, was that really worth killing somebody for? Like, was it really worth it? No, it was one of those kind of books. Like, you did all of that for what? For what? Yeah, no. I gave it 2 stars. Sorry, Sally. All right, the next book that I read was Eliza and Her Monsters. This book has been on my shelves for many years, and I finally read it. And I will tell you this, I was very disappointed. I was very let down because I feel like this book is hyped up so much. People read this book and they give it 5 stars and they call it their all-time favorite and da 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 da. I don't know if it's because I'm a mom that I read this book and I was like, huh? Or what? Because in this book we have Eliza. Eliza is the artist slash creator of this web comic. This is a very extremely popular web comic. So Eliza doesn't really have friends in real life. She only has friends like online, right? Anyway, this new guy comes to town. Lo and behold, he writes fan art. Fan art. He writes fan fiction. There you go. He writes fan fiction of said, what did I just say? I don't even know. He writes fan fiction of Eliza's creation. There you go. And she finds out and they bond. She doesn't tell him though that she's like the creator of this webcomic. But they bond over said webcomic. Okay? Okay. Anyway, so they become friends and get close and blah, blah, blah. The main thing that I really disliked about this book was the way Eliza treated her parents. And that's why I say maybe I didn't like this book because I'm a parent. But she was like on her phone all the time or on her computer in her room to the point where she didn't even realize it was Christmas. She had been in her room for so long at her computer and her mom came up there to get her to come down to open presents and she blew up on her mom. And her mom's like, well, your brothers have already opened their gifts. Whenever you're ready to come down, you can come and open yours. And she's like, oh, it's Christmas. Well, maybe if you would get out of your room, go outside and touch grass. You know what I'm saying? Like, get off your phone for a second. And she was so rude about that. Let me tell you this right here, right now. I get it. I've been a teenager before. And I loved to stay in my room. But I'd be damned if I talked to my parents like that. No. And then later on in the story, her parents do something to make them the bad guys, right? They wind up apologizing to Eliza to the point where they were even crying about it because like they realized that they were the bad guy to her for this certain situation. Never once did she apologize for being a little bitch about them asking her to get off her phone for 5 seconds. I am not ready for my children to be teenagers because let me tell you what, it's gonna be World War III up in this bitch. You know what I mean? They better not treat me like that. I'm gonna give them a bad review on Goodreads. Okay? I didn't give it a bad review, but I just could not stand Eliza. I gave it a 3-star. I do feel like had I have read this maybe when I was a teenager, I would have connected a lot to it. Maybe that's why I didn't connect to it. It is a young adult book, but it is what it is. I gave it 3 stars. And I get like the whole nobody understands being a social media influencer and I'm not an influencer, you know, this is just a little hobby that I do. But I get why some other influencers really love this book because maybe they connect with it on that level. But unfortunately, that wasn't me. My children are very loud right now. I'm so sorry, but they are out there living their best lives. Not on their phone, not in front of a screen. They're playing. Okay, so the next 4 books that I read during a 24-hour readathon that I did, and I vlogged the entire thing. If you want to watch that, I'll link it down below as well. The first book that I read in that was Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is her newest book, and I'm gonna tell you what, I love Emily Henry. I feel like her books are very like literary fiction meets romance. I love it. I love it, and this one did not disappoint. I gave it 5 stars. I cried at some parts. I will say it doesn't overpower Happy Place. I think Happy Place is still in my #1 slot, but this is a very close second. So in Funny Story, and Funny Story is so funny. The humor in Funny Story had me laughing, okay? So also Funny Story, if you like New Girl, go into this book with New Girl on your brain. Go into this book with our main character being Nick. Go into this book thinking that, and I think you'd enjoy it even more. So this book, we have a girl who is engaged to this guy. She actually moved to a whole new state for him, right? They buy a house. It's under his name, right? Not hers. She's a librarian, so she doesn't really make a lot of money, and he does. So he put the house under her name. Anyway, so he's going on his bachelor party weekend situation with all his best friends, and one of those friends is a woman because it's his best friend, right? Right. So she didn't think anything of it because they've been best friends since they were little kids, blah, 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 blah. Next day, he comes back and he's like, so, and his name is Peter. He's like, so me and Petra, Peter and Petra, me and Petra have decided that we love each other actually, and you need to move out in like a week. She's very upset. She did not see that coming. She's upset, and he's a bitch, essentially. And so he leaves again, goes off with Petra, and he's like, I'll give you the week to pack, but when I come back, you need to be gone. Later that day, she gets a knock at the door, opens it up, and it's a guy named Miles, who also is very upset. He's been crying, blah, 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 blah. Lo and behold, Miles is Petra's boyfriend. They've been dating for years, and he finds out that she's in love with Peter. So he's like, where is she? I love her. Our main chick's like, ho, 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 ho. How many rooms is your apartment? And he's like, 2. And she's like, hi, new roommate. And they move in together, essentially. And then 6 weeks pass, okay? 6 weeks pass, and a little envelope comes in the mail. They open it up. It is an invitation to Peter and Petra's wedding. Why would you send your ex's invitations to your wedding? I don't get it. I would never. If my ex would dare set foot, I would chop him into pieces. I would be the star of the next Thriller book. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, and so they come up with this genius idea to like make them jealous, post pictures of themselves doing things on social media together, and just kind of like make their exes jealous to maybe they'll win them back over or something like that. So they fake date. But it's not like fake dating is the whole thing of this book. It doesn't last very long. It's not like the whole focus, whatever. There's just so much more to this book. I really loved it, and I loved the main characters. I loved how funny they were. I loved everything about it. The side characters. I know a lot of people complained about the side characters in Happy Place and how boring they were. They're not in this book. We have our best friend Ashley. I love her, and I really hope. I know Emily Henry doesn't normally do like side characters their own books, but it would be really great for Ashley to get a happily ever after and have her own book, because the girl was funty, okay? Another thing that I loved about this book is these characters are mid-30s. And let me tell you what, I don't mind reading from characters that are like in their 20s. It doesn't bother me at all. But I connect more with people, like when the characters are around like my real age, I collect. Jesus, Beth, can you not talk? I connect so much more to these characters. It's just a good book. I loved it. And I feel like I've been seeing very polar reviews. Some people are like really upset that this was an Emily Henry book. They're like, this is blah, blah, blah. And then some people were like, yes, top tier. And I am definitely, yes, top tier type of gal. God, I love it. Okay. Then the next book that I read was a romance book called Reckless by Elsie Silver. This book didn't just make me cry. This book made me bawl, okay? I cried so hard in this book because I connected with Winter on such a personal level. Winter is the main character in Reckless. So this is part of the Chestnut Spring series, and I'm gonna save you on explaining about the whole series. In this particular book, we have Winter, who is going through a divorce, right? She's filing papers to a creepo of a husband, and her sister lives in Chestnut Springs and she doesn't, but she applies for a part-time job at a hospital in Chestnut Springs so she can then get closer to her sister because she's a doctor. Yeah, so one night she goes to meet her sister at the ranch to have dinner and meets Theo. First off, she sees Theo at a gas station filling up her car on her way to go see her sister, and she is eyeball fucking him. Like, he is scrumdiddlyumptious, okay? And he like sees her and he's like cackling, you know, and he's like, oh, two can play that game. But then they like get on the road. She's terrified to drive in the snow. She's in this little car. He's in this big old truck, and he's like pissed off because he's behind her, and he's like, bro, go. Step on the gas. Let's get going. We got places to go. And she's terrified because it's like snowstorming. She doesn't know where she's going. Her GPS isn't working right, blah, 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 blah. So then they pull up to the ranch together because like, hello, they were going to the same spot. They get out. They have like this little arguing match or whatever. Lo and behold, long story short, they wind up going to the hotel because they're both staying at the same hotel in this town. And she's like, let me buy you a drink for helping me get back to the hotel. And then they make this contract on this coaster about like having a one-night stand. Let's have this one-night stand and then not mention this ever again, because you know, like all the people in their lives know each other and know them, and so like they don't want it to get out, you know, that they anyway, so they and then 18 months later, she has a 9-month-old little girl, and Theo is the daddy. Miscommunication happens, and let me tell you what, I cried my flipping eyeballs out to this book. On an emotional level, I love this book so much. I did not give it a 5-star though. I did not. I gave it a 4. It's probably more of like a 4.5 star, because I felt like, and this is gonna be such a stupid thing to say, but I felt like their relationship was too easy. It's like they did the one night stand, then he went back to his, because they made the contract, so they weren't going to contact each other ever again, right? So he went and did his job, and she went and had her baby and this, that, and the other, and then they see each other again, and then it's just like, they just like fall into place. And I really wanted like angst, tension, hard work. I don't know, I just feel like it was too easy. And that is such a stupid reason why I didn't give this book 5 stars. Is it my favorite book in this? It's so hard because Heartless was so good because all of the angst and the tension between the two characters and like, but whatever. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed that one. I will say though, like, I felt like once the spice started spicing, it didn't stop, and I was like, okay, let's move on with the story. The next book that I read was The Butterfly Garden. Please don't come at me for this, because I know a lot of people love this book. This is a very well-loved thriller, and I get that. I understand that. I respect that. Okay, reading is subjective. We are allowed to agree to disagree and can still be friends, girl. We can still be friends, okay? I gave it 2 stars. In The Butterfly Garden, this guy called the gardener goes out and kidnaps these kids at 16 years old, or close to 16 as he can get them, tattoos ginormous butterfly wings on their backs, and then keeps them in this greenhouse until they're 21, and then on their 21st birthday, he unalives them. I go into more details if you watch the vlog. The reason why I gave it a 2 star, 1, it's like the kidnapping thing. I feel like I've read enough of that. But 2, this one was just so unrealistic, okay? Unrealistic. This man was married for 30 years, and sure, they live in a mansion, but like all of the ordering, he keeps over 20 girls at a time. That's a lot of women to be having in your greenhouse, first off. In the book, he says it's a small greenhouse located in a bigger greenhouse, and his wife and kids are able to go into the bigger greenhouse as like a regular greenhouse, but the smaller greenhouse is off limits, and that's where he keeps all these 20 women, and they have rooms, and and my battery died. I love that for me, but it's just unrealistic. The way that he describes all these rooms for all these women and all these different types of rooms, because you need the embalming room, you need the kitchen, you need the dining room, you need crafts room, and like all of these things. You cannot tell me that this small greenhouse is described to be as big as a damn hospital, essentially, with all these rooms going on. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. And then he spends a lot of his nights there. He spends a night with these women. You cannot tell me that his wife has never once, in the 30 years that he's been doing this, never once has been like, why is my husband ordering all this food? 20 women. He's got to feed over 20 women. That's a lot of food. The resin that he uses to preserve their bodies, like, he's got to get big ass shipments coming into this small greenhouse. Get the F out of here with all that bull crap. Get out of here. And she ain't ever suspected him, not once, for these 30 years. Get out of here. It was building up and building up and building up, and you're expecting this big old grand situation to happen at the end, and it just kind of like fizzled out. Like, are you kidding? Oh my god. Oh, this yarn. My dog, whatever. I gave it a 2 star. Don't come at me. It just wasn't for me. And I know a lot of people love this, and I'm sorry, but it just too unrealistic. Okay? Alright, and then the last book that I read for that 24-hour readathon was A Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. So in this book, we have our girly pop, who is currently living with her parents. Unfortunately, she also just lost her job, and she had been promising her parents that she would be moving out very quickly, like within the week or so. But now that she has lost her job, she literally cannot move out. She barely has any money saved up because she was making pennies working at this job, but she was promised a raise on her 1-year anniversary at this job, and lo and behold, a couple of days before her 1-year anniversary, she got let go, right? She doesn't want to tell her parents that she got let go though, because it would be like a whole I told you so situation, because they warned her for working for this chick, because this chick had been so toxic to her, you know, because they went to high school together. So she's out and about in this neighborhood thinking like, I need a date to this 10-year class reunion, because I cannot go there single, jobless, and still living with my parents. So she's like making jokes about finding a rich husband in this rich neighborhood. So she goes and walks this rich neighborhood, you know, like doing her little thing. There's a guy outside, and she's lost. at this point. She's lost in the neighborhood. She needs to get home for dinner. And her phone, I think her phone's dead or something like that. And she's like, I don't know how to get home. Can I use your phone to help me get home? They start talking and stuff, and she like tells him like, haha, I said I was over here looking for like a rich husband and whatever. And then he's like, well, I need a fake fiance. So maybe we can come up with this deal. You help me, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So then they create this deal that she's gonna pretend to be his fake fiance, fake pregnant fiance. She's actually even gonna move in with him to make it even more realistic, because he's a billionaire and he wants to make this whole property trade situation happen. And like he lied to this guy to like get on his level, you know, because this guy's like humble and whatever. And he's like, oh, you have a pregnant fiance, I have one too, let's have dinner together or some shit like that. Anyway, long story short, it's fake dating trope. It's spicy. There's a lot of spice, a little too much spice in my opinion. I just felt like, you know, the third act breakup in this book was stupid, honestly. If you could not handle what happened in this third act breakup, then you definitely don't need to be in a relationship right now, girly pop. I don't know. I don't think Megan Quinn is going to be for me. This is what I said on Goodreads. I said, I gave it a 3-star, but I said maybe even a 2.5. The prologue of this book was the stupidest thing I've ever read. But alas, I continued on. I read one other book by this author and I gave that one 3 stars as well. Main reason being I couldn't stand the female main character. Same goes with this book. She's quite childish. Even their third act breakup was childish. If you cannot handle that little scene, babe, you cannot handle a relationship, period. She acted like he straight up cheated or killed her cat or something. Like, good lord. I will say I love the banter in the beginning. There were parts I LOL'd at. The angst was good for a little second, and then it was just like a switch flipped and he just changed completely. And then she also changed and they were in love, and the rest of the book was just smut, 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 cheese, corny. That's my thoughts. I did love the beginning of this book though. Like, not the prologue. That was just ridiculous. Like, because they didn't hate each other, but they had like sass toward each other, and I really enjoyed that. But then it was like once that little flip switched and they were in love, all we were talking about was banging, and I was over it. So over it. So there's that one. I don't think these like super smutty romance books are for me, like, genuinely. Oh my gosh. And that was also the last book that I read in the month of April. So wow, there you go. Those are the 17 books that I read in April. The only 5-star that I gave was Funny Story by Emily Henry. There were some closes. There was some books that almost made it, like Reckless by Elsie Silver, but alas, only one, and that's fine. And that is my wrap up. It was a long one, a rambly one, and I'm realizing right now, here in this moment, I didn't hold up a single book throughout this entire thing. Editing Beth is gonna love me so much. It's okay, girl, I love you too. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I honestly, let me know down below some 5-star recommendations, bonus points if you also have romance recommendations that are light spice. Okay, good. I want like 5-star romance recommendations with extremely light spice. Okay, I do love Abby Jimenez, and I love Emily Henry, and I also love Catherine Center. You can give me vibes like that. Let me know, babe, and let me know what was your favorite book in the month of April. Okay, all right, bye.